for our northern region within OneTest, which covers WA, NT, Queensland and New Zealand. We have a lot of mining clients in that particular patch, which is why I'm here speaking to you today, as some of the work that we do there I feel is quite an interesting topic to go through with you. For those of you who don't know OneTest, we're an organisation that helps organisations predict how people will perform and behave in work through assessments. So today I just want to provide you a bit of food for thought around safety and the role that the individual plays in the outcomes. So I'll do that before a bit of a shameless promotion about OneTest and how great we are as a business. Righto. I thought I'd just start with a little anecdote and a little story about that happened to me a couple of weeks ago in Brisbane. Just relating to, the role of the individual in safety. I was just coming back from doing a bit of shopping. I was on the way home, had to fill up my car at the petrol station and rocked into the petrol station to see a petrol tanker filling up the station there and a couple of guys hanging around. So as I'm working with safety assessments a lot these days and doing a lot of things around safety, I'm quite cognizant of all the safety things that are going on around me. So I did notice the fuel station had all the safety signs and all the relevant safety equipment and things going on. There were a couple of guys there in their high-vis gear. Sorry, ladies in the room, that's a bit of that picture is not cognizant of the guys that were actually there. They were driving trucks and things, so it didn't look quite that sharp. And the thing that struck me most was going through the process. So I saw one of these guys sort of sneak off around the side of the building, and I wondered what he was doing and where he was going. So lo and behold, 2 seconds later, I see him there. Sorry, I couldn't find a better cigarette picture, smoking away in the side of the building. So my instant thought was, wow, okay, that's interesting. At a petrol station, someone smoking beside the building. I figured this guy was with the truck and was about to drive away, so he might have had to have a quick ciggy before he left. And so I suppose the point I'm making here is that this was a global company the petrol station was with, so they had all their safety procedures in place. They had all the safety gear on, they had the right boots, the right gear, and yet this particular individual had decided that maybe the rules didn't need to apply to him and he'd gone out to have a cigarette. As I went in to pay for my petrol, lo and behold, behind the counter was this particular gentleman. So I had to pay him my money, and I actually asked him the question, what did you think you were doing smoking out there? Don't you think that's a health hazard? And his response was, well, I was smoking away from the door. So, his concern was more about the legislation around smoking near the entrance of a building rather than actually causing a fire in a petrol station, which I thought was an interesting approach. The final part of the story, you'll like this. As I walked out the door, my mobile phone began to ring, and he called out after me, "Don't answer that near the pumps, please." So, anyway, just gives you a bit of an idea about what we're talking about and the role an individual can play, and how an individual's proclivity and their own thoughts and safety can influence factors outside of a corporation's control. So what is safety behaviour and what influences behaviour? And what are we here to talk about today? So safety behaviour is influenced by a lot of different factors, and individuals are influenced by a combination of these. So obviously a person's experience, their job knowledge and their skills. We're looking at the behaviour of co-workers and supervisors, an organisation's emphasis on safety, the level of risk within the environment, and individual beliefs. But there's three main factors in there, and I think if you go through that list, there's environmental factors, there's organisational procedural factors, and there's also individual factors in there. And it's the individual factors that we're going to focus on today and have a quick look at. So I think most of you know, and I think a lot of you here are from similar industries in terms of that mining space, that organisations in high-risk industry have done an amazing job controlling risk so far. There's procedures galore, and they conduct rigorous assessments to keep abreast of potential work hazards. So organisations are doing a great job in controlling that safety risk. They traditionally focus on those areas of the workplace over which they have the greatest amount of control, which is their working environment and the equipment within that environment. As a result, the primary response of the employers has been to eliminate the risk by engineering it out, or by containing the risk through the provision of safe physical safeguards. Okay. So over time, the heavy emphasis on enhancing environmental and procedural aspects of the workplace has resulted in a plateau of safety metrics. And so this is what I'm just trying to demonstrate with the graph here. So no matter how many safety procedures and controls a company puts in place, you're never going to get to a stage where you're completely controlling all of the risks. So at time, no matter how much procedure you have in place, there's going to be a plateau in terms of your safety performance, and it's going to be extremely hard for organisations to reduce that safety performance over time. yet safety incidents still occur. And why do they occur? And, you know, the role of the individual in those safety incidents should not be underestimated. So around 90% of incidents in the workplace occur due to the interaction between human error and when certain controlling environments fail, which in theory is a perfect storm. So what I'm trying to suggest out of this particular piece is that the individual is the wild card on whether or not a safety incident may occur, no matter what procedures and processes an organisation has put in place to mitigate those risks. In 2003, ConocoPhillips put together a bit of a study of some of the incidents and things that were happening in their business, and they made this estimation on a couple of factors here around at-risk behaviours leading to fatalities. So they had 300 recordable incidents and injuries, they had all the work days, and they had the fatality. So they estimated that from those events there were 3,000 near misses, and about 300,000 at-risk behaviours that they're estimating were happening. So the at-risk behaviours included activities not consistent with safety programs, so training and components on machinery. So it might have included bypassing safety components on machinery or eliminating a safety step in the work process. So logically, the figure above also raises questions about how many of these at-risk behaviours remain unchecked and do not escalate to near misses. So how many of these aren't going through and causing recordable injuries or lost work days? And at some level, individuals must make the conscious decision to disobey a safety protocol and risk causing or being involved in a work accident or incident. Most safety practitioners out there would agree, and we talked to a lot of them, so we know that they agree, that there are some individuals that are simply more likely to be involved in accidents. You know, I think, you know, if you think about your personal connections and your personal friendships out there in the world, you probably know someone who's a bit like this. They're a little bit risk averse, or sorry, not risk averse, a little bit more, you know, less safety conscious. So high-risk industries are so heavily regulated and safety conscious that a share of that responsibility for safe practice must ultimately rest with that individual. You know, an example of that is, you know, there's a very high-profile case not too long ago with a couple of workers in the gas industry who decided planking on top of a chimney stack would be a pretty cool thing to do. Now, I'm sure the company in question didn't particularly have that written up in a safety procedure that you can't plank up there, but the individuals themselves have to take the responsibility for going outside and beyond what the safety parameters have been put in place and doing that. So psychometric assessment functions as a proactive identification mechanism at the base of the ConocoPhillips pyramid. So we're looking at trying to highlight the 300,000 at-risk estimated behaviours and minimise those estimated behaviours by screening out those high-risk individuals through assessment. This will ultimately reduce the chance of a fatality occurring, and since the organisation is better able to lower the frequency of at-risk behaviour in the workplace, predicting workplace accidents, however, is not a simplistic exercise. It's not just all about the individual, but we're focusing on the individual today as the X factor in all of this. So how do you go about assessing individual risk? The literature that we refer to, and we have some extremely smart organisational psychologists in our business who do all of this stuff for us, look at 5 different aspects in terms of how you assess individual risk. So the first one there, fatalism. So an individual's perception of control regarding safety outcomes. What we're talking about here is that locus of control, and does a person or an individual believe, or what they believe in regarding the personal control over a life's event. Is an accident just bound to happen to me? You know, do I have any control over it? These individuals often believe that events are predetermined and there's little that can be done to prevent an accident. We were talking to a client just last week, and the client said the attitude on one of their drilling rigs at the moment is, particularly from the leadership and the older hands, is that accidents are going to happen, and the way that the newbies will learn on the job is if they lose a finger, they won't do it again. You know, so this is one of our clients telling us, and they're implementing our safety assessment to try and weed some of this out, but they're indicating that no matter how good their own process and controls are, the individual beliefs really affect how safety can be administered. So risk propension and propensity and sensation seeking is the next factor. So the extent to which individuals seek out thrills and excitement in taking risks, And obviously this is a bit of an issue in the workplace. Look, these individuals are more inclined than their co-workers to engage in unsafe behaviour because they underestimate the chances of accidents happening through the risky attitudes they take. Now, couldn't think of a good work example on this particular one, but I'm sure we've all seen Jackass TV or something like that, the guys who think it's really funny to go and hurt themselves, you know, and they take that risk and they're constantly taking that risk. So that's the type of people, maybe an extreme view, but that's the type of people that we're talking about with this group of people. Stress management, so obviously, you know, looking at the capacity of an individual to manage stress. Some people have a great ability to remain calm in situations of stress, however others react very poorly to stress. And so that stress can make people more prone to mistakes, make people more prone to having accidents and errors because of their loss of concentration. So it's another particular point we look at. Attitudes towards drugs. So individuals who are tolerant towards drugs are more likely to have used drugs in the past, and they themselves are more likely to condone the use of drugs in a workplace environment. Now, we all know, and it's well documented, the effects of substance abuse in the safety industry, so I don't need to give you too many examples about that, but so people with those you know, tolerant attitudes towards drugs will have less issues with people in their businesses, you know, using drugs. And the final one there was violence. So individuals with lower levels of agreeableness are more belligerent, hostile, aggressive. They're less able to cooperate effectively with others, and they respond to situations aggressively. This again is associated with higher incidents involved on site. And I know what you're all saying, wouldn't it be fantastic if there was a company out there that could screen an individual in a very short period of time against these ones? I'm not sure there is, but we'll see if we can come to that a bit later on. Thanks, you're a tough audience. That was a little giggle. Okay. Before I get to OneTest itself and how we go about doing things, I thought I'd give you a couple of little case studies about some corporations that we work with and some of the things that they found by using the assessments. So we were working with a particular company who had a lot of issues internally with some incidents on site. So they asked if they could use our assessments to validate their internal population and how they were going. So we looked at 105 diesel fitters and we used them using our safety. Assessed them using our safety assessment. We assessed each person as either high risk, which is pretty well the lowest 20% of the population, or average to low risk. In this case, 14 of their individuals fell into the high risk category, which for those trying to do the maths is about 13%. But of those 13% of employees, you can see the stats there. 56% of all the accidents were attributed to these particular people. 36% of the sick days. 67% had changed duties at one stage. 47% for MTIs and 80% of LTIs occurred through this very small portion of those individual groups. So, as I was saying before, I think a lot of us know who these individuals are, but it's about being able to identify them before they get onto the work site, or being able to identify them once they're in the work site, and you can develop these individuals as well, so through understanding their proclivity towards safety. The second case study I was just going to mention briefly was again a bit of a validation exercise that we did with a client of ours. So we've been working with this particular client for about 3 years, and some of the line managers and some of the hiring managers internally were a bit sceptical about whether the safety assessment was working for them or not. So we did a bit of a business impact study on the hires that they'd used with our safety assessment over a period of time. What they've been doing is actually ignoring the particular advice we'd given them on hiring through the safety assessment and the candidates to exclude. And so they had some people coming through the system that weren't, or we were recommending they should be screening out. So again, you can see that the numbers of people that we assessed, and out of that there are 81 high-risk employees identified that had got through the cracks. And look, the upshot is you can see the numbers on the screen there, but in terms of real dollar value to the business, and this is only just over a 1 year period, that cost the business $100,000 plus in work cover claims and over 300 days of sick leave. So it's just another small example about by allowing people in with low safety control into your business, it can actually have a real detrimental impact on how things work and how things go in your business. And I suppose the cool thing is for HR practitioners and for CFOs and anybody involved in finance is, this is a direct correlation to a return on investment for your business. You can screen these people out. You're going to make money. You're not going to have these incidents happening on your business. You're not going to have as many sick days. You're not going to have as many leave days. You're not going to have as many LTIs, MTIs. So the return on investment to your business is actually quite strong. And we've got some great case studies that indicate that. So I mentioned before, it'd be really cool if there was an organisation out there that assessed against those 5 particular areas. I'm really happy to say that OneTest does that. So this is just a quick snapshot of how we go about doing that with our organisations. The assessment we use is a very simple 10-minute online assessment. The reporting comes back in this particular manner. So it gives the candidates an overall safety rating. We rate those candidates against different industry groups and industry comparisons, because different industries have different levels of what do they expect in terms of their safety. So we give an overall score, but we also break it down into different factors, and here's where the development piece can really come into it as well. Plus it can lead to interview questions when you're trying to assess these people through the interview process. So we look at safety control, risk aversion, stress management, drug aversion, and attitudes towards violence. You can see this particular person scored very highly, and their overall level of safety awareness is very high and very good. So this would be somebody that we'd say should have no problems in the business and should be hiring. It's people that finish down here in the red area that we sort of ask you to take a very close look at and to pay much attention to, this side of things. So where are they weak? Where do they have development areas? And take some caution about whether or not you should be hiring them. We've done, I think, around 80,000+ of these assessments this year. So we have a pretty big sample group and a pretty big knowledge group of a lot of the market that's going through this. And I think the best thing about these assessments as well is if you have people on site already, you can use them as a development tool. They're not just excluding people out through the recruitment process and that sort of thing. So you can use them in that particular manner. So that's it. So I was going to talk about a little bit about who is OneTest, very briefly just to finish off. I didn't want to take up half an hour today. I don't want to sort of bore you to tears. Now it's getting towards the end of the day. So just a very brief bit on OneTest and who we are. Look, we're an Australian-owned and Australian-made business. We're based in Brisbane. We have all of our organisational psychologists on site. All of our norm data, all of the assessments that we use are Australian-made and owned. We have in-house psychology and development teams that operate out of our business. So we're very agile in terms of how we work with our clients. And those sample reports, as soon as you've done them, as soon as they've been completed, are sent straight to you and also to your candidate. So straight away you've got instant feedback and rankings on how your candidates have performed, so you can move on very quickly. We have 7-day candidate support and technical assistance, and we are, of course, a quality endorsed ISO organisation, as we think it's extremely important to have. And look, that's just a sample of the type of companies that we work with and have worked with. That's obviously growing day in, day out. But that's it from me today.